You just liberated Neverdeath. What are you going to do next? Well, I'm going to leave the city. Find me some werewolves. And some Shadar Kai. And some Shadar Kai werewolves. Hey everybody, I'm Kel. Now that you're here, let's talk about Neverwinter.
Our shaman has spoken of your coming.
So, there is a connection between the goings-on in Neverdeath and what's happening here in Vellosk. But in a very un-Neverwinter way, it's actually kind of subtle. The Red Wizards are at war with the Shadar Kai. You know the Shadar Kai because you just fought a bunch of them in Evernight while exploring Neverdeath. And you definitely know the Red Wizards because they're the go-to bad guys through almost all of Neverwinter. Even when you go to Chult. Hell, even when you're in Sharandar, you complete this weekly and this random Red Wizard shows up talking about how his master wants this portal to remain open. Okay. Good for your masters, I guess. But your adventure in Vellosk is almost 100% dedicated to fighting werewolves and Shadar Kai. And Shadar Kai werewolves, which is a very interesting combination that I have to admit works. And the whole time, the Red Wizards are floating around as a backdrop, and they do make an appearance in one dungeon that you explore. As a first foray outside the city, Vellosk is a welcome change of pace and a lot of fun. But wait, you say, aren't you going to whine about all of the great content that was lost when Jewel of the North came along and made the rocket sled to level 20? Well, not really. These ogres stand out. I'll say these ogres. There used to be a little subplot going on with them where somebody would give you a reason to go and fight them. But the ogres are still here, just the subplot. So every now and then when you're walking around Vellosk, you'll bump into someone standing under a tree who has a name, and just know that in the back of your head that used to be a little story element, a little bit of flavor, a little bit of development around what Vellosk is, why you're here, what's happening, and what it's like to adventure in Vellosk without being laser focused on the battle between the Red Wizards and the Shadar Kai. That's all I got to say about that. A lot of the quests that are in Vellosk are focused around the culture of the Forsworn and the people who have lived in this area. There's a lot that deals with the spirits of their ancestors and how they interact with nature around them. I actually really like the quest that revolves around helping the hunt master with the dogs because the hunt master has been injured. She can't actually go out and care for the dogs. And since you're already out there killing werewolves, you can just grab some extra meat while you're there. And you can actually come back and you actually interact with each dog individually and feed them and then complete the quest. I thought that was a really nice little quest. It's at its core, it's just a fetch quest, but the way it's handled, it kind of conceals that this quest is just go out and get 3 of these because of the way that it's resolved and the way that it's delivered. It's a nicely done. One thing that I also thought was rather interesting, I mentioned subtlety earlier, which is something that Neverwinter doesn't usually go for. But one of the first things you're told is that the people here have been perverted into the worship of Shar in the guise of the Great Hunter. And while you're out here, early on in your adventure, the Great Hunter appears. And so basically, you kill an aspect of Shar, and it's literally a side quest. You're just there, and you're doing a couple of things. You're taking care of some evil altars, and oh, by the way, go kill the aspect of Shar. It's not the end of the adventure. It's barely a footnote in the adventure, just important enough to not get cut for Jewel of the North, And then you move on, and nobody ever makes a big deal out of the fact that you just single-handedly fought an aspect of Shar the Night Mistress. I probably killed the Great Hunter like, I don't know, a dozen times at least before it occurred to me that when they said that that's an aspect of
With the
Shar,
totems gone,
and I'm
perhaps the
fighting that thing with
corruption of the
that
Grey
name,
Wolf may be lessened.
I'm fighting
We can only
Shar.
find the real
It just seems
master
like
if
something
we
that,
are.
there might have been some fanfare around, or I don't know, a heroic encounter maybe, but you get to fight Shar pretty early on, and then you just move on because Shar isn't the big bad. Vellosk also seriously embraces the idea of different quest givers and kind of a tiered effect as you work your way through.
The spirit
So,
of the
in the
Grey Wolf
beginning, when
cried
you
before the
first
gods
arrive,
sent the
you hear
rain.
that
If we did
our
not make
shaman
sail,
has spoken of your arrival.
in the
You
caves
do a
of the
couple of
depths and
quests, you
shadows,
ingratiate yourself, you prove that you're really the good guy, and now you get to go and you get to actually meet the shaman. And this feels like a really big deal, and the shaman sends you on a couple of more quests. But then after you've completed those quests, then the shaman sends you off to meet someone even more important than that. And then from there, you go on to someone else. And to think of it in tiers is kind of interesting because you literally go higher and higher up the mountain towards that giant wolf head up at the top of the mountain. So it really is a very linear structure of I complete these quests, I go a little higher up the mountain. I talk to someone a little bit more important. I take care of some more important quests, I go further up the mountain until finally you're at the top of the mountain and you're fighting the big bad. Also, as a quick aside, this little area here in Vellosk is probably the best spot to go if you're looking for a cluster of skill nodes all together, especially early on when you've got a low level character, you don't have a lot of mount insignias, you're just trying to get a few things to fill in your mounts. You can come in here and run around this little cluster and gather up what's in these skill nodes. Some of them are actually hidden pretty cleverly, but there are quite a few skill nodes in here. I've heard some people say that you're going to get better luck, you're more likely to get insignias and insignia powder out of the skill nodes in Dragonbone Vale, and I've seen some videos on YouTube that make a really convincing point of that. But if you're actually running around with a character who's level 5 or 6 and you're just trying to fill out your stable, this is a great way to get insignias. You can do this a couple times while you're running around Vellosk, and there's nothing to stop you from coming back to do it again. So I know whenever I've got a brand new character and I'm trying not to just fill them up with things from my other characters, I come back here, and this is a great way to pick up some starter gear for your mounts tab. I think in my Let's Play video that actually shows Kel running through and um, playing this entire adventure, I believe that it actually shows the location of all of these skill nodes if you're interested in finding them all, if you're not familiar with this little area of the game. All right, and check it out. This is where you find the Red Wizards, this little dungeon right here. The shaman who foresaw your coming sends you off to investigate what's going on here in this dungeon. And while you're here, you find some red wizards. They're not the big bads, though. And it is kind of a blink and you'll miss them encounter because when you get in here, you get to the Wrath Eidolon. This is not a golem created by the Red Wizards. And other than the fact that the shaman is about to say,
There were red wizards hidden deeper in the ruins. This war between the Thayans and Shadar-kai defiles our sacred lands.
doesn't mean that this is going to go turn into a hunt down the Red Wizards and defeat them for this atrocity. Oh, this campaign isn't focused on hunting down Red Wizards. This is the Shadar-kai werewolf adventure, and nothing's going to make you deviate from that. So it's run up the mountain a little bit higher, find some more werewolves, find some more Shadar-kai, take them all out. We'll worry about the Red Wizards in another adventure. I hear a lot of people online, I read a lot of comments about people who don't like that there's reused maps in Neverwinter. And, well, this one does strongly resemble a map that's in Elemental Evil, and I think obviously Elemental Evil came after and most likely was using these maps. As someone who started playing pen and paper Dungeons and Dragons with crayons and markers representing the walls of the dungeon we were exploring, and little pieces of paper with names written on them, or just numbers if you've got goblins 1 through 6, just little sheets of paper with 1 through 6, and we just moved the pieces of paper in between the crayons and the markers. Got to admit, this is still pretty state of the art, and when we finally graduated to miniatures and we moved on to Dwarven Forge, if my players ever had a problem with the fact that every room we went into had the same exact gray Dwarven Forge walls, our game probably would have suffered for that. So, there is an element of, sure, this is going to look familiar after a while. There's only so many ways you can make a cave wall or a castle wall or a dungeon wall. Sometimes you just got to take that with a grain of salt. And that's the big bad that you have to fight in order to complete the first half of Vellosk. It's really not that kind of a blink and you'll miss it fight if you've got a character who's actually around level 7 or 8 whenever you're doing the battle. But I love this effigy in the background. It's another element of really how the art team on Neverwinter really is capable of knocking it out of the park. This is just such a cool little thing, and I love that it's got a front and a back. It's not just a three-dimensional image, but you're allowed to walk behind it, and you can actually check it out from all directions. Just a really cool little touch. It's nothing to click on, it's nothing to interact with, and I think that actually in some ways makes it even cooler because it's just there to represent the culture and the history of this fantasy village out in the middle of Neverwinter Wood. And then when you leave, you realize that they pulled the diabolical trick of the exit is also the entrance. This really sticks in my craw because it just seems really kind of shady that you defeat the bad guy and the wall rolls down and hey, you're back where you started. Shame you had absolutely no chance of figuring that one out before you fought your way through the entire location. But hey, it's a game, and it was a really cool dungeon. And we're riding back, and we're going to find out about what happens when we get promoted to the next level of Vellosk. That's right, we're going to make a spirit journey. Almost every character that I have run through Vellosk has gone in the form of a wolf. But I just made a character the other day, I believe it was a fighter, who turned into a bear. And I'm really curious, I don't think it's class related because I've got a whole variety of classes, or maybe I just never noticed that my other characters didn't turn into wolves. Does anybody understand what determines what kind of ghost animal you turn into for this portion of the game? Is it class related and I just didn't notice? Or is there something else to it? I'm not sure what could possibly determine. Maybe it's just random. If you know, put it in the comments below. I'm really kind of curious. Most of my characters, if I remember correctly, they turned into wolves. But now I have a character that turned into a bear. I'm not really sure why that happened or how. And I'm wondering what other animals I might be able to have my characters turn into for their little spirit run. Anyway, hey there, Dying Hal. Probably one of the most unique quest givers in all of Neverwinter. He's going to send us on to the second half of Vellosk. Hope you like what you've seen here today. If you did, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment in the comment section. And we look forward to seeing you next time when we talk about Neverwinter.